Clorox versus Cognizant, a $380 million cybersecurity wake-up call. U.S. bleach and cleaning product giant Clorox has filed a $380 million lawsuit against IT services provider Cognizant, alleging the company's Helpdesk staff handed over network passwords to cybercriminals who simply called and asked for them. No questions asked. The breach wasn't caused by malware or 0 days, but by the absence of basic verification, said Sanchit Gogia, chief analyst at Greyhound Research. Enterprises must no longer equate outsourcing with abdication. This lawsuit may shift breach response from an operational process to a legal calculus, transforming how enterprises negotiate liability, assign contractual burden, and architect resilience, Gogia explained, as quoted in csonline.com, in an article authored by Gyana Swain published on July 23, 2025. Beyond the media quote, our view, in full. Press for time? You can focus solely on the Greyhound flashpoints that follow. Each one distills the full analysis into a sharp, executive-ready takeaway, combining our official standpoint, validated through pulse data from ongoing CXO trackers, and grounded in field notes from real-world advisory engagements. Clorox lawsuit exposes structural gaps in vendor security oversight. Greyhound flashpoint. The $380 million Clorox lawsuit against Cognizant highlights a chilling truth about outsourced IT. When oversight fails, trust becomes a liability. Per the Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025, 68% of Fortune 500 CIOs report increased board scrutiny of third-party vendor contracts, particularly around authentication and incident response standards. The breach wasn't caused by malware or 0 days, but by the absence of basic verification. At Greyhound Research, we believe enterprises must no longer equate outsourcing with abdication. Security accountability must be contractually enforced, continuously validated, and strategically governed at the board level. Greyhound standpoint. According to Greyhound Research, the Clorox breach reveals a pervasive weakness in third-party governance models. Passive compliance masquerading as control. The act of handing out credentials over the phone without validating the requester's identity speaks to a failure in both policy enforcement and contract design. The future of vendor risk management must include real-time helpdesk analytics, challenge response logs, staff recertification schedules, and codified verification drills. Contracts must evolve beyond abstract SLA language to specify operational controls, including helpdesk identity protocols, multi-layer MFA enforcement, breach escalation timelines, and indemnity for human errors in high-access environments. This incident will likely catalyze a new category of contract clauses: verification fidelity, guarantees backed by audit trails, breach rehearsal metrics, and real-time reporting to client-side GRC systems. Greyhound Pulse. Per the Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025, 74% of global CIOs in regulated sectors have begun revising vendor contracts to mandate joint security committees, bidirectional threat intel sharing, and automated breach simulation drills. More than 61% now include penalty clauses for failure to verify access requests, especially in cases where customer or employee credentials are involved. Enterprises are demanding forensic-ready contracts, in which access requests must be traceable and vendor helpdesk logs auditable within 24 hours. This shift is not merely operational. It reflects a deeper realignment of risk ownership, where vendor security is treated as a material risk to financial performance. Greyhound Field Note. Per a recent Greyhound Field Note from a Tier 1 financial services firm in North America, a breach rehearsal revealed that over 30% of password resets were performed without full ID validation despite contractual obligations to enforce MFA and challenge response procedures. The audit uncovered that the vendor's helpdesk team used internal escalation shortcuts that circumvented standard protocols during high call volumes. This led to an immediate renegotiation of contract terms to include call-level verification analytics, biometric audit logs, and live spot checks by the client security function. This real-world experience reinforces the principle that delegation of IT tasks must not imply delegation of control. Clorox breach shows social engineering is reverting to low-tech, high-yield attacks. Greyhound Flashpoint. The Clorox Cognizant breach confirms a disturbing evolution in threat actor strategy. Attackers are dropping complexity and succeeding through simplicity. Per the Greyhound CISO Pulse 2025, 56% of CISOs now rate assumed process familiarity as the most exploited weakness in enterprise security, overtaking phishing links and credential stuffing. At Greyhound Research, we believe organizations must treat simplicity itself as a red flag. If someone calls and asks for a password, that is not a service request. It's a probable breach vector. Human verification must be operationalized, drilled, and continuously reinforced across every customer-facing and internal support channel. Greyhound standpoint. According to Greyhound Research, scattered spider success in breaching Clorox via verbal manipulation reflects not innovation, but regression, a deliberate retreat to tactics that exploit the weakest link, untrained humans. Enterprise security awareness programs have largely focused on email phishing and malware vectors while neglecting voice-based social engineering. This imbalance now poses systemic risk. Going forward, help desks must be retrained not just on policy, but psychology, understanding that trust-based interaction must be balanced by identity skepticism. Verification should not be a checklist. It must be an interactive, contextualized process with multi-channel escalation options. Enterprises must also enforce dual-agent authorization for high-impact changes, such as password resets or privilege escalations. Governance mechanisms should include randomized call audits, recorded playback reviews, and pause-before-action triggers for all support personnel. Greyhound Pulse. The Greyhound CISO Pulse 2025 reveals that while 87% of enterprises conduct phishing simulations, only 26% conduct live verbal impersonation drills targeting service desks. Among those, fewer than 18% simulate blended scenarios, e.g., SMS plus phone call, or test non-technical staff such as Helpdesk and payroll. This gap is being rapidly closed in sectors like healthcare, retail, and finance, where insider familiarity is often abused to bypass controls. Furthermore, 63% of recorded breaches in the past year were attributed not to malicious intent, but to what we classify as operational compliance errors, where employees performed harmful actions while technically following procedures. This necessitates a pivot from rule-based training to outcome-driven decision frameworks. Greyhound Field Note. Per a Greyhound Field Note from a Southeast Asian telco conglomerate, a recent internal red team test exposed 12 successful password resets performed by helpdesk staff after a 2-minute voice call with a simulated IT operations director. The simulation revealed not a lack of policy, but an excess of politeness and fear of escalation. In response, the enterprise rolled out real-time call authentication overlays, enabled delayed action resets pending multi-factor confirmation, and retrained support teams using actual breach reenactments. This shift from generic awareness modules to experiential training significantly improved the team's challenge response resilience in subsequent drills. Clorox's $380 million lawsuit may redefine enterprise cyber liability and insurance norms. Greyhound Flashpoint. Clorox's litigation against Cognizant could become a defining case for cyber liability jurisprudence. At issue is not just who was breached, but who should have stopped it. According to the Greyhound CFO Pulse 2025, 72% of Fortune 1000 CFOs are now aligning cyber insurance premiums with third-party vendor risk scores, and 43% have restructured policies to include subrogation clauses for vendor-caused incidents. At Greyhound Research, we believe this lawsuit may shift breach response from an operational process to a legal calculus, transforming how enterprises negotiate liability, assign contractual burden, and architect resilience. Greyhound standpoint. According to Greyhound Research, the Clorox case marks a clear transition in enterprise risk thinking, from internal containment to external attribution. The claim that Cognizant's negligence directly led to $380 million in damages has immediate implications for how organizations define scope of work, contractual accountability, and insurability. The future of cyber risk will be governed by outcome-based contracts, breach-linked liability matrices, and dynamic coverage models that flex with security telemetry. Enterprises must start embedding breach response as a joint obligation, with shared logging, co-authored incident timelines, and indemnity provisions linked to verified role failures. Contracts must also be reviewed against the emerging standard of consequential impact exposure, where vendor-triggered breaches lead to loss of brand equity, regulatory penalties, and operational shutdowns, far beyond the direct technical remediation. Greyhound Pulse. Per the Greyhound CFO Pulse 2025, 68% of CFOs and firms with over $1 billion in revenue have either renegotiated or declined cyber insurance coverage in the last 12 months, citing unaffordable premiums and unclear payout standards. Of those with active coverage, 42% now require vendors to carry separate breach-specific insurance and provide proof of inclusion in incident impact tables. The rise of exclusion clauses for negligent contractor actions is prompting enterprises to require coverage validation from vendors and to codify recovery mechanics contractually. This shift is also influencing board-level governance, with 61% of board audit committees requesting integrated vendor risk dashboards that tie coverage posture to third-party exposure heat maps. Greyhound Field Note. Per a Greyhound Field Note from a Fortune 500 pharmaceuticals enterprise, a ransomware attack linked to a third-party logistics provider resulted in a 6-month legal battle over breach notification delays and indemnity allocation. Despite a robust cyber insurance policy, the enterprise had to self-fund over $9 million in losses due to an unresolved clause regarding vendor-originated access pathways. Following this incident, the firm restructured its insurance portfolio to include cyber subrogation triggers and contractual fallback mechanisms. Vendor contracts were also revised to mandate breach response co-ownership, with real-time playbook integrations and quarterly joint rehearsals. This case solidified the enterprise's belief that insurance and contracts must converge, not operate as isolated financial safeguards. Analyst in focus, Sanchit Gogia. Sanchit Gogia, or SVG as he is popularly known, is a globally recognized technology analyst, innovation strategist, digital consultant, and board advisor. SVG is the chief analyst, founder and CEO of Greyhound Research, a global, award-winning technology research, advisory, consulting, and education firm. Greyhound Research works closely with global organizations, their CXOs, and the board of directors on technology and digital transformation decisions. SVG is also the founder and CEO of the House of Greyhound, an eclectic venture focusing on interdisciplinary innovation. Copyright policy. All content contained on the Greyhound Research website is protected by copyright law and may not be reproduced, distributed, transmitted, displayed, published, or broadcast without the prior written permission of Greyhound Research or, in the case of third-party materials, the prior written consent of the copyright owner of that content. You may not alter, delete, obscure, or conceal any trademark, copyright, or other notice appearing in any Greyhound Research content. We request our readers not to copy Greyhound Research content and not republish or redistribute them, in whole or partially, via emails or republishing them in any media, including websites, newsletters, or intranets. We understand that you may want to share this content with others, so we've added tools under each content piece that allow you to share the content. If you have any questions, please get in touch with our community relations team at connect@thofker.com.